Hi everyone, welcome back to the Pro MMA Betting podcast. So UFC coming up this Saturday. We've got main event Curtis Blaydes taking on Junior Dos Santos. So we're going to break down the card as we always do from bottom to top. Quick recap on the first UFC of the year, so the start of the betting season as I call it for us. On pre-bets we lost 0.6 units, so very minor loss. We lost a couple of our bets as well in terms of the fights didn't happen. Our biggest bet on the card was Grant Dawson. Unfortunately that fight got cancelled. We had a really good price on that as well. We managed to get minus 160. We also lost Alexa Grasso, didn't make weight, so the commission didn't approve the fight. So a couple of bets were voided. So it ended up being a bit of a mess with them two fights being voided. So a 0.6 loss, it's on pre-bets, it's not the end of the world. In terms of live betting for members, it was an extremely quiet night on live betting. I can't remember the last time we've gone through a whole UFC show and we've only made one live bet. The only live bet we made all night was after round 1, Askarov to win by decision plus 150, which cashed for members. And I'll tell a lie, we did make a second live bet. It was after round 2 of the Askarov fight. I recommended members put 0.2 on the draw, just in case the judges scored round 2 for Tim. Only one judge did, and in case they gave round 1 a 10-8, which I don't think anyone did actually, but the draw was sitting at, I think it was at 50 to 1, so plus 5,000, so it was worth having a little sprinkle on it. That didn't come in, so we lost 0.2 there, but on the decision we won 1.5, so 1.3 units profit on live bet, minus the 0.6 that we lost on the pre-bet. So members won about 0.7 units, so it was a bit of a nothing night really. First card of the year though, it's better than a big loss. Let's get ourselves warmed up and hopefully start making some money from this week. The betting season hasn't really kicked off yet. We've got the UFC this Saturday, then we've got a 2-week break, and that's when it really kicks in. I think there's about 8 consecutive from there, and you'll find that for members the boxing will start kicking in as well. The cards will be a lot more regular, especially in the UK, and that allows us to be able to live bet on the UK boxing shows that run before the UFCs. Most UFCs are overseas for us and in the early hours of the morning, so lots to look forward to, lots to kick off. Just to recap the service, guys, for 12 months pre-bets and live betting service, it's only £195. Last year, members who use £100 units across the year, including the pre-bets and live betting service, they won £14,500. Massive return on investment. You're going to struggle to find that kind of return anywhere, even in the stock market. So if you are interested in betting and treating it as an investment as opposed to a gamble, come and jump on, guys. I view this as sports investing. I'm very careful and diligent with my bankroll management. I've said this many times, I'm not the type of person where you are going to make 30 units in one night with me. You're not, because I don't take enough risk to do so. I'd rather treat this as a marathon, small and steady wins. Which I see a lot of people doing, if we risk like 30 units, if we have a bad night, and it does happen, MMA is extremely unpredictable, we lose 30 units, you've lost a third of your bankroll. It's craziness. Like I said, on the pre-bets this weekend just gone, we lost 0.6. I'm not saying you won't have a bigger losing night than that, you will, because we can't win every week. As I've said many times on here, it's impossible to win every week. You've just got to win more than you lose, and that's what we do. We're proven winners long term, but you have to take the marathon approach, guys. There's so many shows. If you're going to join the team, you can't throw your toys out the pram after one loss. We're probably going to be betting over 100 shows this year when we include pre-betting and live betting, guys. You're going to take losses. We can't win every show, but we will profit long term. That's the key here, is profit is king, but you've got to take the marathon approach. So as I say, £195 only for the year. You can purchase the package from the website prommmabetting.com. go to the Premium Bets tab. All the packages are there, guys. All of our bets are tracked. The free links to our trackers are below this video. They're also listed on our website. If you click on the betting record tab, everything is documented. I am 100% transparent, and we use our Twitter to post our bet slips along with the stakes. We don't cover the stakes up. I want to show you guys that I'm betting what I'm tipping, and not only am I betting it, I'm actually putting big money on it. There's nothing that I tip that I won't bet. Occasionally I might send out a tip where I can't get action down. I'm banned online at most places, but I'll tell members, look, I can't bet this personally, but if I could, I would bet X amount on it. But that's pretty rare. Normally I only send out tips that I can personally bet myself. So transparency is key, guys. Number one for me. Everything is tracked, bet slips, stakes posted. You won't find anyone more transparent. So we're at the start of the year. If you want to jump on board now, this is our season starting. We've had one game, so to speak. Got the rest of the season ahead. So if you want to jump on board, £195 for the year. We do offer weekly, monthly and 6 monthly service. I mean, the monthly service gives you a taster, but like I said, it's a marathon, not a sprint, guys, and this is a 12-month service. You're not really going to get a proper flavour for it, especially the weekly, even the monthly. I mean, the 6 monthly, yeah, but anything less than that, I mean, yeah, you can buy in for a month, especially if it's a month where we've got a few UFCs going on. It'll give you a taste for the pre-bets and the live betting service, but the value for money lies at subscribing to the yearly service. So let's move on to this fight card. As I said, we're going to break it down from bottom to top. Not the best card ever, this one, but at least there's some UFC after the kind of 4-week dry spell we had. So let's kick it off from bottom to top. So first fight on the card, guys, we've got Herbert Burns, brother of Gilbert Burns, making his UFC debut. We saw him on the Contender Series back in August, taking on Nate Landwehr. Not sure if I'm saying that correctly. So Herbert, as you can imagine, very good grappler. He's 9-2 as a professional. 7 of his wins are by submission. He's got no KO victories and a couple of decision wins, and his 2 losses are both decisions. Lost 2 fights over in 1 a couple of years ago. Nate is making his UFC debut. He's been fighting on the Russian circuit recently. His last 5 fights have been in M1. He's coming off 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 straight victories. He's got 8 KO wins from 13 and 5 decisions, so no submission. So kind of spells it out here. We're getting grappler versus striker. It's a hard fight to call, this one. I'm really not confident on what's going to happen. I think there's a chance. I think the longer the fight goes, the more it favours Nate. I would not be shocked if Burns manages to snare him in a submission in the first round. Nate can be taken down. Does give his back, getting back to his feet, so there's definitely a distinct possibility that Burns manages to snatch up a submission. But I just think the longer this fight goes, I think the more the tide may start to turn, and Nate can win this one. So as I say, I'm not confident. Lions are bad at pick'em, which I think is pretty accurate. I don't think there's any value either side. I would probably go with, I mean, Nate's actually the favourite now. He's up at -125. So it's a tough. I'm gonna go with. I'll go with Nate, but I've got no confidence on that pick whatsoever. I just think he can withstand the storm early and take over the longer the fight goes. So I'll lean Nate here to win. Maybe a late stoppage or decision, but I wouldn't be shocked if he gets subbed early. But from a betting perspective, I don't think there's any value there on the line. There's a lot of unknowns going into this fight. I think it's one that's best avoided personally. But I'll go with Nate. I just feel he's like one of those tenacious types who can, if he survives, he gets stronger. I don't like betting against people like that, and I feel Burns is more of a opportunistic kind of guy. So I just feel if Nate survives, he could nick this. So I'll go Nate, but again, no confidence whatsoever. Next, men's bantamweight division. We've got a fight I'm actually really looking forward to. We've got Brett Johns taking on Tony Gravely. So this is quite an interesting fight from a stylistic point of view. Tony's a very strong wrestler. We saw him on the Contender Series with a pretty dominant victory over Ray Rodriguez. He's coming off about 7 straight wins. If you look through Tony's record now, his losses have been when he's taken a step up. He's got a loss in there to Patrick Mix from about 18 months ago. He lost to Manny Bermudez nearly 3 years ago. Merab Devashvili, that's just over 3 years ago. And Ricky Bandahay, he lost to as well, going back over 4 years. So when you look through his record, when you see the notable names, he has lost in those fights. But I do get the impression that he's improved since them fights, and he is now a better fighter. I haven't really seen him on the feet for extended periods. From what I have seen from the tape I've watched, he can throw his hands on the feet. He can be aggressive when he throws. His hands seem decent, but I just haven't seen him in protracted exchanges on the feet. So just a bit of a question mark there. He's good moving forward. I'm not sure what he's going to be like if he's not the one moving forward, if he has to fight on his back foot, and what he is like standing for extended periods. But he does have very good cardio. He can push a very high pace. Don't expect him to slow down here. Brett Johns, very good cardio himself. He's got different styles of wrestling, but he's not as explosive as Tony, or as good as athletically. But Brett's style is to try and wrestle. He's been out for a while. He had a knee injury. I'm not sure exactly what it was, whether it's a torn ACL or what, but I know he had a problem with his knee. So he's been out about 18 months, so quite a layoff. He was coming off 2 really difficult fights. He fought Pedro Munoz and Aljamain Sterling, 2 of the best in the division. No easy task there at all. He won his first 3 fights, utilising his wrestling basically, especially in the first 2 fights. Against Soto, got a very quick calf slicer submission. Aljamain and Pedro were just a step too far. Aljamain just controlled the wrestling, had a lot of success in the clinch. I remember in round 3 pretty much held Brett against the fence for a lot of that round. Got a couple of takedowns on Brett as well. Couldn't really get much going on the ground. I think it was the end of the 3rd round he got his back, and that's how the fight finished. But apart from that, didn't really get too much going on the ground. Brett showed decent enough takedown defence and ability to get back to his feet, but he just struggled on the feet. Aljamain's very unorthodox on the feet. He uses his range well. He's just difficult to deal with, and Brett struggled with him basically. Pedro Munoz, they had a very competitive first round, these two, on the feet, back and forth, but Brett's calf got severely jeopardised early in round 2, and that kind of swung the fight. He then got hurt multiple times. He got hurt to the body, he got hurt to the head. Done really, really well to survive until the final bell there. Showed really good submission defence though. Was able to avoid Pedro's guillotine, which he kept dropping for. Didn't really come close to getting it. He had some top control on Brett, but I don't know how much Brett's get-up ability was hindered by that calf injury. But I mean, Brett did always manage to get his way back to his feet. So this is an interesting one for me. On the feet, I mean, Brett is very durable, and he can throw down. Brett, he's got, he's hittable, but he's got decent enough hands. We've seen him on the feet more than we have Tony. So on the feet, it's interesting. I just don't know how Tony's going to do if Brett does start to push him back, because we've only seen him attacking, and he's only been on the feet for small periods. I think he can hit takedowns on Brett most likely, but I'm not sure what kind of degree of success he'll have in maintaining top position. It's a real tough one to call, and Brett's coming back from that long layoff as well. Is he going to be rusty? The line currently, it's not far off a pick'em. Tony's a slight favourite. He was a bigger favourite. He was up at, well, actually it's saying he opened as a plus 175 underdog, really. I think the lines are fairly accurate. I mean, in my head I've got it as a bit of a pick'em, but I've just got a slight lean towards Brett. The 18-month layoff does give me reservation, but we've seen him in there with higher quality opposition. And like I said, against Pedro, you know, round 1 was really competitive. It wasn't until his calf went that Pedro really started to take over in that fight. And Aljamain's, you know, he's one of the best in the division. Aljamain is really, really difficult to look good against. So I don't want to hold that one against Brett either. I think if we get the same Brett that we had previously when he first came into the UFC and in subsequent fights, I think this could be a tough fight for Tony because, as I said, Brett does pressure, and I'm just really intrigued to see how Tony handles that on the feet. And I don't think he can just take Brett down and hold him down. So I'm going to lean Brett here. But like I said, I don't think there's any great value really. He's plus 100 now. You know, I know he was at a bigger plus number earlier. I know it's saying Tony was plus 175, but I don't remember that. I thought he was always the favourite. But I know the line has shortened because Tony was a bigger favourite than minus 120 at one point. But it's just a fight I'm not confident on really at all. But I'll go with the underdog here, Brett, to win probably a decision. If I had to bet this fight though, I think that the fight goes to a decision is interesting. It's minus 160. I think that's kind of where the value lies. Brett is extremely durable. I'd be very surprised if Tony can get a finish here. And basically, well, just under 50% of Tony's fights go to a decision. And he is on a bit of a run of finishes. I think he's finished like his last 7 opponents. But one of them was in round 5, another one was in round 4. These last fight that was deep into round 3, so he kind of seems to get these finishes the later the fight goes, and I just don't see him finishing Brett. Brett's not a finisher either, so for me personally at minus 160, that would be my favourite bet on this fight to go to a decision. Next, women's bantamweight, we've got Sarah McMahon taking on Lena Landsberg. Guys, this is an easy fight for me as a bettor to pass on. I've got many years experience betting. I fully understand why people would bet Sarah McMahon here. It seems like a very difficult stylistic matchup for Lena Landsberg, and so Sarah may come away and make this look very easy, but I have got zero regrets on passing, even if Sarah comes out and takes her down immediately and head and arm chokes her inside 30 seconds. I will have zero regrets. I've learnt many lessons betting on this sport, and there's certain things that I stick to in terms of passing on, and I will not break those rules. The reason I'm passing on this fight there's numerous reasons. I'll tell you them all. Sarah McMahon is now 39 years of age. She's almost 40. She's not fought in 2 years because she's had a baby. Now, having a baby is an extremely taxing physical event for a lady, and all the changes that their body goes through. And as I've already said, Sarah is 39. She's not spring chicken. She might come in here and look as good physically as ever, but a 2-year layoff, 39 years of age, had a baby, no cigar for me. That's a complete pass. And when you add on the fact that Sarah McMahon is a flake, it just becomes an easy decision for me to pass on. I mean, you've only got to look at her last 2 fights. Ketlin Vieira, good first round, gets taken down in the second round, insta-subbed basically. Marion Renault, again, good first round. Second round, she flakes again and gets triangle choked. I just can't trust her. As good as a stylistic fight it does seem for her. Lena Landsberg is coming off 2 kind of improbable victories against Tonya Evinger and Macy Kaysen. She was a big underdog in both fights. I mean, you go back to the Kunitskaya fight, which is the one before the Evinger fight, and Kunitskaya basically just easily out wrestles her. She just doesn't offer anything off of her back. So you can see why, you know, people are on Sarah, and then Aspen Ladd got an easy takedown and finished her with ground and pound. So I get the angle that people are betting Sarah here, you know, and as I said, she could make it look easy, but she's not getting my money, especially as a favourite. She's currently sitting at Where's the betting line? She's minus 155. It's just, I can't touch it. It's just an easy pass for me. I mean, it's saying here she opened as plus 120, which, you know, maybe my hand would have been false there. But minus 155, I can't. Look, I'm going to pick Sarah here because it does seem like a really good stylistic fight for her. But I just wouldn't be shocked if she comes out and just physically doesn't look great, or she just comes out and flakes like she has done in the past numerous times. So yeah, I have to pass on this one, and I will have zero regrets. I don't care what happens, even if McMahon dominates. It's an easy pass for me. So I'll go with Sarah, probably to win a decision, because Lena isn't dangerous off of her back, and her stand-up's not even great. Lena's best in the clinch, basically, but you know, against an Olympic caliber wrestler, that seems like a big ask. But I just personally can't risk it. So I'll go with McMahon to win a decision. But from a betting perspective, I think you should pass on it personally. So next up, men's bantamweight division again. We've got Montel Jackson taking on Felipe Colares. Not a lot to say here, guys. I think Montel should win this fairly comfortably. Colares definitely looks a lot better against Pilate than he did in his UFC debut, which I think was on short notice against Freitas, where he got pretty routinely beat down for the 3 rounds there. Pilate fight was very close, could have gone either way. He managed to nick the split decision. Montel Jackson, though, is a big talent. As we've heard many times, he's got giant hands. His hands are apparently as big or bigger than Brock Lesnar's, and the guy's fighting at 135 pounds. He's coming off a couple of good performances against Brian Kelleher and Andrei Sukumtov. So yeah, I just think he's just too much for Felipe here. The UFC have given Montel this fight to hopefully keep the juggernaut running, the hype building, and I don't see him having any problems, but that is reflected in the price. He's currently in the minus 600 category, so you know there's no value there. You'd have to look at the props. Do you think he gets a decision? Over, the bet online have released the overs. Over is over 2.5 minus 150. Do you know, I've not really got a strong opinion on this one either way. Not really got a handle on whether Montel is a finisher or not yet. He got the decision last time out against Sukumtov, but to be fair, Sukumtov, I don't think he's ever been finished. Before that, he got the quick win over Brian Kelleher. Went to the decision with Ricky Simon, but Ricky's a tough boy, tough fight really for a lot of people stylistically. And he got the finish on the Contender Series in round 3. So yeah, I'm happy kind of passing on that fight completely. Even on the, you know, the odds makers aren't sure either. They've got fight goes to a decision minus 135, inside the distance minus 105, so it's near enough a pick'em. Jackson inside the distance plus 130. Yeah, just for me it's a pass. I need to get a proper read on Montel in terms of is he a finisher, isn't he? He's obviously developing and improving. So we'll see here. Interesting fight though. Always good to see Montel. I think he's a very solid prospect. Women's Flyweight Division next. Fight I'm actually looking forward to. I'm surprised if this isn't pretty entertaining. We've got Justine Kish taking on Lucie Pudilová. So Kish is coming back from, I think she's been out for a couple of years. Yep, a couple of years. I know she's had some knee issues, which hopefully have been resolved now. So she's back for the first time since her fight with Kim, where she lost a split decision. Quite a controversial fight, that one. I did rewatch it, and I remember at the time live betting Kish. I thought she definitely won the first couple of rounds. She did struggle in round 3 though when Kim started to apply pressure. That was Kish's first fight at 125. What did impress me about Kish in that fight is she fought a lot smarter. If you watch her previous UFC fights, she's like a ball in a china shop. She just charges forward, no regard for her defence whatsoever. But she completely changed her style up against Kim, so that showed some solid fight IQ and good restraint.
because she fought a lot smarter, and it kind of bit her in the arse because she lost the decision. But I thought she won the first 2 rounds pretty comfortably. Just trying to recollect, I think she was throwing a fair few leg kicks and whatnot, and that is the problem with them. Unless they are Barboza-like, judges just always outweigh head punches, which I think Kim did edge her on even in the first couple of rounds, so that probably is what cost her the fight. But she did show some smart fight IQ. She did show she could fight differently. She's not really got takedowns in her arsenal. A lot of her takedowns, when you look for her fights, are head and arm throw attempts. She's not bad on the ground. She's very scrambly, but she did get dominated on the mat pretty much by Felice Herrig. But she definitely needed to move to 125. She was struggling to make 115. What I didn't like was in that third round against Kim, though, when Kim started to have success, when she realised she needed to be aggressive and push forward. Lucie Pudilová is very aggressive. She's going to have 3 inches of height and reach on Kish here. Now Pudilová is coming off a number of losses. She lost to Irene Aldana in one of the best women's fights you'll see. Very, very back and forth. Excellent fight. Very close fight. And then she's had a couple of tough fights stylistically. Liz Carmouche, difficult stylistic fight there. I bet Liz Carmouche in that fight, and well, I mean, I felt quite fortunate to get a decision because Liz's fight IQ was just ridiculous. But I mean, that's just a tough fight stylistically. And then she's coming off the loss to Shevchenko, where her whole plan was to try and get Shevchenko to the mat, which, I mean, she had varying degrees of success, but it ultimately cost her the fight because on the takedown attempt in round 2, Shevchenko managed to get on her back and sink the choke. So, you know, she's going to be happy to strike with Kish, I'm sure. I don't think she's going to come in with a grapple-heavy approach. I think she can come out here and strike with her, and we've seen that she can do damage on the feet. I mean, you go back to the Lena Landsberg fight. Lena's face was an absolute mess. She busted up Irene Aldana as well. I think there are advantages for Pudilová in this fight. She's the bigger girl. She's got the reach and height advantage. I think she's the harder puncher. So that's going to look good in the judges' eyes when she's landing her solid right hand. She's got a decent jab. I can see it being back and forth. But I wonder where Kish is at. The 2 years out, you know, is her head fully in the game? I know she was doing some kind of celebrity thing in that time out as well. So, you know, where is she at in terms of her MMA career moving forward? But Pudilová, 3 straight losses. She loses another one. She's probably going to get cut if she loses here. So there is some pressure on her shoulders as well. But I do expect this fight to play out on the feet. If Pudilova's got any fight IQ, she will fight aggressively like she did in the Irene Aldana fight. There's no need to hang back here. Liz Carmouche was worried about the takedown threat. Antonina Shevchenko, she changed up her normal game plan. Here she can just apply the Irene Aldana fight strategy, and Justine Kish isn't as good a striker as Irene Aldana. She doesn't have the movement. She doesn't have the power. She's not a shot with her hands. Lucie should just come out here and be aggressive and throw her hands, let them go. So I do favour Pudilová here. What's her price currently? She's up at -175. Oh no, maybe it's starting to get a little bit steep now. It is Lucie Pudilová. She's 8-5, but I do favour her here. The fight to go over 2.5 is -300. I don't think that's a bad price, to be fair. I'd be shocked if this fight ends inside the distance. Justine Kish is very tough. Lucie's very tough. I think it's going to be a stand-up fight. Pudilová by decision is +110. I don't think that's the worst bet. If you wanted to split a bit of the money line with Pudilová decision, I don't think that's a terrible idea. But yeah, I'm going to go with Pudilová here to win this one via a decision. Okay, men's featherweight division. We've got a fight that was put together late notice here due to various pullouts. So we've got Arnold Allen taking on Nick Lentz. Now the betting line's only just come out for this one. We've currently got Arnold Allen at minus 300. We can get, like Bet Online, you can get plus 250 on Nick Lentz. For me, I think that line's too wide for me. I don't like that line at all for Arnold Allen here. He's always had hype, Arnold. He's a good prospect, but you look through his career, this could be a potential banana skin here. He's got a couple of inches reach on Nick. He fights out of the southpaw stance. Nick, since being with Henry Hooft, he switches his stance up, and his stand-up's really improved. You can even see like some of the combinations he throws in both stances that they're kind of a natural progression from one stance to the other. His stand-up's really improved late in his career. The question mark for me here, though, is Nick Lentz is going to want to get this fight to the floor. If they're on the feet for 3 rounds, it's highly likely he gets outstruck. Now, I mean, Arnold Allen isn't a massive high-volume striker, but he's very good technically. He's young, he is improving, and he's training at TriStar as well. So there is a lot of upside to him. He could look even better than his last couple of fights here. That is the danger with these youngsters. I think he's only 25 years of age, or 26 now, just turned 26. We saw him last year against Ronaldo and Melendez. Pretty comfortable victories. I mean, Melendez is past his best completely. And Ronaldo kind of, not really UFC level. But if you go and look at Arnold's fights against Alan Omar, Makwan Amir Khani and Mads Burnell, they're guys that have had success wrestling with him. The most recent one is Mads Burnell, which is about 18 months ago, and he pulled that win out of his ass, Arnold Allen. I mean, even the Alan Omar fight, B took that on short notice, and that was a long time ago, so I'm not really going to take too much from that. But the Mads Burnell fight was one where he was losing. He was 2 rounds down easily, and he managed to pull a choke out. He kept getting taken down. He couldn't get back to his feet. Now, Nick Lentz is probably a better wrestler than any of those opponents. He's a credentialed wrestler. I think he was Division 1. And recently he managed to grind out Scott Holtzman, who's extremely physically strong, very difficult to hold down, but he just managed to grind him out for the better part of 2 rounds and nick the decision there. So this fight's at 145. Arnold Allen isn't as physical as someone like Scott Holtzman. The question mark is Nick Lentz. He is getting on there. He moved back up to 155 because his body was shutting down when he was trying to make 145. Now, I looked at his Instagram and he looks in great shape. But at 35 years of age, moving back down in weight, these things don't normally work out too well. So there is question marks there. I'm a little bit worried about his cardio, especially if he comes in with this wrestle heavy approach. Is he going to be able to maintain it? And his chin's probably starting to go as well, and he's cutting more weight here, which, as we know, is never great for your chin. He's coming off that knockout loss to Charles Oliveira, and he took a lot of damage against Scott Holtzman as well, especially in that 3rd round. Now, on the flip side to that, Arnold Allen isn't a big puncher. He's got no TKO wins in the UFC. They've all been submissions or decisions. He's not TKO'd someone since, Paul Cook over 5 years ago, but that was a doctor stoppage. If you're going back to a punches, we're talking, you're talking nearly 6 years ago. So he's not a massive puncher. But he does have very good boxing, and if you've got good boxing, good timing, good accuracy, that can equal power if you time stuff right. But on the whole, yeah, he's not this huge puncher. But I definitely think the line's wide. You've got to favour the youth of Arnold Allen here, the improvements, the technical boxing. But as I always say, this podcast I do is based on value and betting lines. I'm not just going to pick someone necessarily just because I think they win. So for me, I'm going to have to lean Lentz here, just purely based on the value. Do I think Nick Lentz wins? Probably not. If this was a pick-em line, I'd definitely be picking Arnold Allen, but we can get plus 250 on Nick Lentz, guys. The odds are currently telling us that Arnold Allen wins this fight 3 times out of 4, 75% of the time. is that accurate? I just think it's a bit steep. I think there's some value there on Nick Lentz. Now, I'm not saying it's a big bet. You know, their career paths seem to be going in opposite directions, or they are going in opposite directions. But you know, Nick Lentz has improved his stand-up over at Combat, or I can't remember what the camp's called, Henry Huff's camp. So I just think it's a bit wide, just because we haven't seen Arnold Allen's takedown defence basically tested since that Mads Burnell fight, and you know, he would have lost that Makwan fight if it wasn't for a stand-up in round 3. Makwan was on top with a couple of minutes to go. Arnold got very fortunate with a referee stand-up with about 2 minutes left, and I think he ended up finishing the fight on top, so he nicked the decision. But without that stand-up from the referee, he might have been stuck on his back for those last couple of minutes. So he got very fortunate there. And then the Mads Burnell fight, he was lucky again. Apparently he had a chest infection or something, but I don't take injuries, illnesses, etc. I don't factor them into my capping, because everyone's injured. Sometimes you don't hear about the injuries and you don't know how badly they affect performance, etc. It's just I just can't bring it into the equation. So very interesting fight. So look, I think I expect Arnold Allen to win this, just because I think he is a decent prospect, and I expect to see improvements here. He's wrestling should be improving. He's young. He's at TriStar. He's got a very good coach, and he seems a solid prospect. But the value for me is on Nick Lentz for a small play, plus 250. Look, Arnold could come out here and box him up for 3 rounds, and we could all look silly playing Nick Lentz, but we're in the sports investing game. We have to take risk. We have to look at perceived odds and perceived value, and I think the value here is on Nick Lentz at plus 250. So I'm going to pick Nick Lentz, guys, just purely based on the betting value.
Middleweight division next, Bevon Lewis against Dequan Townsend. Line says it all. I mean, Bevon Lewis should win here. There's just some question marks regarding where he's at in terms of, I think, more mental than anything. He was coasting against Uriah Hall, and then he got knocked out, and seemed to really stay within his shell against Darren Stewart. It seemed to be a bit concerned about getting knocked out again. He's got a really good fight here, though. Townsend isn't UFC quality. I mean, Bevon should coast to a victory here. The line was sitting at minus 300 for quite some time. I didn't take it personally, but I couldn't blame anyone if they did. I think the only line that is of interest or value here is on this fight going to a decision. It's plus 140, or you got Lewis wins by decision plus 200. I think a shot on Lewis by decision isn't bad value here. I mean, the concern is that he's so far ahead of Townsend that he just outclasses him and just ends up finishing him just because it's so one-sided. But I mean, Townsend's only been finished once by strikes. That was in his UFC debut, and it kind of took a monster shot. And with the kind of self-doubt that Lewis seems to have at the moment, he might fight fairly tentative here. So I don't think Lewis by decision is a terrible play. I think that's where the value lies on this fight anyway. He's minus 450 favourite now. That ship has sailed completely. But to win by decision, plus 200, I think it's worth a stab there. Bevon Lewis by decision. So we're on to the main card now. First fight, we've got Jamahal Hill taking on Darko Stošić. Not a fight that I'm particularly looking forward to. I've not been impressed by Darko Stošić. Hill, we've seen Hill on the Contender Series. I'm still not entirely sure where his potential lies, to be completely honest. He looked okay in the Contender Series fight against Popek. Got the stoppage towards the end of the second round, but Popek not the best opposition. In fights prior to that, Hill had looked a little bit questionable. He's a young guy though, could be improving. Stošić, just he had the quick win over Jeremy Kimball, and then
Devin Clark fight. The problem with Stošić is his volume. He's just so low volume. He had the Kennedy loss where he had the points deducted for the low blows, but I mean, he won. I think he won the third round, but I think I had him losing the first 2 rounds anyway. The guy just has. I mean, he's got decent takedowns, but he's just volume's just. It's a hard fight to call this one. I just don't know how good Hill is, and Stošić just someone you can't bet Stošić. His volume's just ridiculous. You can't trust him. I mean, he's a slight underdog here, but I'd need bigger odds to risk money on him. Wouldn't shock me if Hill kind of pot shots his way to a decision type win here. I mean, Stošić's kind of facing another Kennedy type opponent here. It's going to be the same kind of fight. He's just going to have to let his hands go and be more aggressive, but I'm just not seeing any value on the fight. I mean, he was a slight favourite, -135, so I don't fancy that. Stošić +115. I need bigger dog odds to bet that man, because he's frustrating as hell to bet on. Someone with low volume. It's one of the big betting commandments. You just can't bet on people with crappy volume. So fight goes to a decision. Let's see what that is. +130. I think that's quite interesting, because Stošić isn't. I mean, don't get me wrong. If he cracks you, he's gonna do damage. He's a big guy, but just I'm not really buying into the finishing ability of him. Going to a decision, I don't think Hill finishes him. Seems like he's durable enough, but I just can't risk either fighter here. But I think if you want to bet the fight, I think fight goes to a decision is the best value. It's up at +130. Maybe would have liked it a little bit wider, being 2 light heavyweights and it being a little bit of a, being a difficult fight to gauge. But I don't think Hill, I mean, from watching his Contender Series fight, he doesn't seem like the biggest puncher in the world. I don't think he finishes Stošić, and Stošić's not the greatest finisher. I've watched a lot of Stošić's fights before when I've capped him. I remember watching the Dion Starring fights that both went to a decision. I don't think he's some deadly finisher either, so I think the value there is on the fight to go to a decision at +130. Next up, we've got Angela Hill taking on Hannah Cifers. So Angela Hill fights very, very regular, takes lots of short notice fights. I think she's taken this one on about a month's notice or so not too bad. Shadow's telling me she's 35 years of age now, so she's coming off that win over Ariane Carnelossi, where she got the cut stoppage. Carnelossi, a bit of a Terminator type, keeps coming forward, so a good win for her there. Prior to that, she was coming off a loss to the Chinese fighter Yan. Very close fight, that one. I remember I bet Hill there because I think I got like +200 near enough. I thought that was value, and turns out I feel I was on the right side there. I think that's a very close fight. If they fight 10 times, I think you're looking at near enough 50-50. So I feel I was on the right side there, but we didn't get the decision. And before that, I bet Hill actually as well. I managed to get about -200 on her. I got quite a lot of money down on that against Jodie Escobel before the line rocketed. Comfortable win for her there. She's got good volume on the feet, Angela. She's high volume. She just, I mean, I know most women lack power, but her shots just don't really, I don't know, they just don't seem emphasised to the judges, because she just seems to have real poor power. So that can go against her a little bit in the judging, as well as her posturing and her body language. She can kind of get tired. She does fight through it well generally, but just all these things can, in a close fight, they can go against you in the judging. Hannah Cifers is coming off a win over Jodie Escobel, so they've got a mutual opponent. I don't think Hannah looked good in that fight at all. It was pretty competitive. It just wasn't an impressive performance, and she beat Poliana Viana the fight before that, but I mean, again, that was a really close fight. Poliana held her own on the feet in that fight, and then prior to that, she suffered a pretty nasty beatdown against Macy Barber. I think this is quite a tough fight for Cifers. She's not like a pressure striker. She's not really going to bring the fight to Angela Hill. I can just see Angela kind of picking away at her here, taking a decision. I mean, Angela Hill is out at minus 160, is coming a little bit. In Angela Hill, it's Jodie Escobar she's facing. You don't really want to be betting Hill up at, getting towards a minus 200 mark. She's not the type of person you want to bet as a moderate to large favourite. But I do think this is a good fight for her. I don't see her losing to Cifers. Hill to win by decision is minus 120, so there's 0.4 difference between money line and decision. You've got to be careful you don't try and get cute with these things, because they do come back to bite you. But I do like Angela Hill here. Personally, if I was going to bet it, I'd put probably half on a money line, half on a decision line, as long as there is the gap of 0.4. If it closes, then it's not worth it, just stick to the money line. But really don't see a finish. But I'm going to go with Angela Hill to outwork Cifers over 3 rounds here and win a decision. Men's Flyweight Division next. We've got Jordan Espinosa taking on Alex Perez. So Espinosa, we saw him on the Contender Series, got a very late victory over Riley Dutro. Made his UFC debut against Eric Shelton, took a unanimous decision, and he took a quick loss to Matt Schnell back in August, where he got submitted via a triangle choke in the first round. So Espinosa, good footwork on the feet. He's got quite a cardio taxing style though, and you do notice he does tend to maybe drop the pace a little bit as the fights go on. I think against Riley Dutro, he looked good in spells in that fight. Riley did have some success in spells as well. He managed to, he did drop Espinosa at one point, but Espinosa was pretty comfortable for the duration of the fight. Eric Shelton, he had a comfortable first couple of rounds. He struggled a bit in round 3. Once Shelton started pressuring and pushing forward, Shelton started having more success, and then against Matt Schnell it was kind of over before it really began, to be fair. Espinosa went for a takedown and he basically got submitted off at a takedown. So he's got a big step up here against Alex Perez. Alex Perez has been pretty impressive in the UFC so far. He's not as fleet of foot as Espinosa, but he's got solid stand up. He's got good low kicks. He can fight at a high pace. He's got good wrestling. That is the unknown here as well with Espinosa. We haven't seen his takedown defense tested, so I don't know how good his takedowns or his takedown defense is. His takedowns aren't great, Espinosa. He does try and mix in takedowns, but most of the ones I've seen have been shut down. I'm not sure how good the takedown defense is, so that is an unknown here. Alex Perez in the UFC has had really good success with his wrestling, so I imagine he would try and mix things up here. He trains with Colin Oyama. I like that camp. They've got a good set of fighters. I think Perez is probably going to come out. He's going to be kind of stalking Espinosa. Espinosa is going to be trying to pot shot him on the outside, moving around. Can Perez catch him? And can Perez mix in his wrestling? We saw him on the Contender Series as well. We destroyed Kevin Gray. Then dominant wins really over Carlos John, De Thomas, Eric Shelton and Jose Torres. Came short against Joseph Benavidez. Big step up there. And then he's coming off a dominant win over Mark De La Rosa. So, he's been pretty much dominant, Perez, except for the Benavidez fight. He's very big for the weight. So I think this is going to be a case of he's going to try and apply pressure here. He's going to try and mix in his wrestling, try and slow Espinosa down. Espinosa is going to try and stay on the outside and probably try and pot shot his way to a decision here. I think Perez is just going to catch up with him though. I can't see him managing to sustain that style, especially under Perez's pressure. And there's the added threat of the wrestling. As I said, Perez has shown really good wrestling in the UFC. Espinosa's takedown defense is the unknown. But I think even if it gets stuck on the feet, I just think Perez will ultimately get to Espinosa as the fight goes on, and I think his pressure will pay dividends. And we saw that with Shelton. Once Shelton just started pressuring instead of sitting back, being too patient, he started to have success. And that's kind of Perez's style from the get-go. I see him trying to get in his face straight away. So I'm going to go with Perez here to win this fight. Value, he's out at minus 275 territory now, so the value's starting to go. Over 2.5 rounds. He's minus 180 at Bet Online. I don't think that's a bad price. Espinosa, has he been finished before? Let's have a quick look. He's been submitted 3 times. Perez does have a good front headlock series, so there is that danger, and obviously we saw him submitted quickly in his last fight, but he's never been KO'd. Perez, not really a KO artist, although we did see him take out Jose Torres, but Torres kind of indulged him in that brawl. That's his style. I think Espinosa is a lot more fleet of foot and will try and fight on the outside. So I don't know, there might be some value on the over here. They are flyweights as well, 125 pounds. The finish rate does drop off in the lower weight classes. It's De La Rosa and Shelton he went to a decision with, so both them fights, they were quite wrestle heavy. If he can't get the wrestling going against Espinosa, means it's going to be on the feet, and he can crack. We saw that against Torres, but I've got to lean for this to go the distance, but I'm not sure if there's any value there on the over at minus 180. But yeah, Perez here for the decision win for me. Co-main event, we've got Rafael dos Anjos taking on Michael Chiesa. Probably the fight I'm most looking forward to on this card, I would say. I'm really interested in this because there's a lot of opinions going around on Twitter and so forth, and I've seen a lot of people very, very confident in Michael Chiesa here. Now, in terms of the action coming in, it's all RDA money that's coming in. He was at minus 275 at 5 times yesterday. He's down to minus 265 at the moment, but that's the only way I've seen the money trending, is all coming in on RDA. You've got Michael Chiesa, who he's basically an opportunistic submission grappler. His game hasn't really altered since he's been in the UFC in that sense. His stand-up hasn't developed at all, really. It's still very underdeveloped. The only move he has made is he's moved up to 170. He used to struggle to get down to 155. He was a very big 155er. Now he's at 170. So I don't know how much of a difference that is going to make for him long term. It's hard to gauge for me personally based off of his first 2 fights at welterweight. He took on Carlos Condit, who is shot and needs to retire, and Carlos has never had good takedown defence, so this, even in his prime, would have been a fairly difficult stylistic fight for him. And then he's coming off a win again over a shot and who I wish would retire, Diego Sanchez. And Diego's fought down at 145 before, and he's a lightweight at best. He's not a welterweight. The size difference was huge. He just got completely controlled for 3 rounds. So you've definitely got to respect Chiesa's opportunism with his grappling. He's got those long limbs. He's good at taking your back and getting on your back. So you've got to be very careful with a rear naked choke. But for me personally, I just don't think, outside of that opportunism, I just don't think his game is that well put together. Like I mentioned already, his stand-up's very underdeveloped. He's got solid enough takedowns, but his top control is not great. He's not like a stifling top control person, and he's quite susceptible as well to like the heel hook sweep, because he's got such long gangly legs. I've seen numerous people hit that on him. And he's got them long arms as well, like Carlos Condit nearly armbarred him. I mean, for instance, I think he took Carlos Condit down 3 times in the first round, and Carlos got back to his feet every time. I mean, even Diego Sanchez kept getting back to his feet. So unless he can snag a submission when you're getting back to your feet, and he does have a good back take, I don't see. He's not the type that's going to hold someone like RDA down for a full round. I just don't see that. And then, I mean, if we look beyond these last 2 fights, he was coming off back-to-back losses to Kevin Lee and Anthony Pettis. Obviously there was the controversial ending with Kevin Lee, but he was getting dominated in that fight. And then, you know, a lot of people started believing in Anthony Pettis again after Pettis kind of blew him out, really. Had him in some trouble on the feet, and actually ended up submitting him from the bottom. So, you know, there's some question marks here with Chiesa as well. Is, you know, he can be submitted. We saw Pettis do it. We saw Carlos Condit came really close to submitting him. I mean, even that's a long time ago, but even Jorge Masvidal submitted him a few years ago. Before the Kevin Lee fight, he had the Dariush fight where he was getting tooled on the feet, and Dariush kind of slowed down, and they ended up shooting him for a takedown and getting his back taken and submitted. So, look, I'm not as high on Michael Chiesa as I've seen a lot of people are. I think he's a good opportunistic submission grappler, but an RDA is a big step up for him. It's definitely the toughest fight of his career. Look, the question marks with RDA are he is 35 now. Where's his motivation at? He's lost 3 of his last 4, and you know, is he maybe starting to dip a little bit? I don't think he is. I think he looked good against Kevin Lee in a fight that he won. You have to look at his losses. So he's lost to Leon Edwards, Kamaru Usman, and Colby Covington. He's lost to the 3 very best welterweights on the planet. There's no shame in that. He took them all to a decision. Okay, maybe the fights weren't overly competitive. Maybe the Colby Covington one, you could argue, was, you know, maybe 2-2 going into round 5. But Usman and Edwards won fairly convincingly. But, you know, imagine Michael Chiesa fought these guys. You know, you can't discount RDA just because he's lost 3 of his last 4. And I don't like playing MMA math, and it doesn't generally apply. But I mean, you look at mutual opponents, and RDA destroyed a prime Anthony Pettis, and he submitted Kevin Lee. Michael Chiesa got blown away by both of them. But that is MMA math. It doesn't really apply generally. But RDA for me, I mean, he's just a much better, more rounded MMA fighter. He's got the better striking. The guy's cardio is very, very good, and he's fighting in a 3-rounder here. Now, he probably is built for 5-rounders, but I reckon this might be quite nice for him that he's only got to fight for 3 rounds, just like a bit of a mental break. I mean, his last 5 fights have been 5-rounders. So this might be quite nice for him, where he can come in here and just let it all out over 3 rounds. He's definitely the better striker. He can hit takedowns on Michael Chiesa. He took down Colby Covington and Kevin Lee, so if he can take them down, he can take down Michael Chiesa. So let's not forget that, and let's not forget how good of a grappler RDA is either. He's had 42 professional mixed martial arts fights. He's never been submitted. So, you know, I mean, some people might try and say, did he tap to Clay Guida? But, you know, he had the broken jaw. That's not a conventional submission kind of victory. So the guy's never been submitted. We saw Kevin Lee got on his back. He got Kevin Lee off no problem, and Kevin Lee's got one of the best back takes in the sport, as we saw when Kevin Lee fought Michael Chiesa. So people, I don't know if they're sleeping on kind of RDA a little bit in his ground game. Something else RDA also has is he has a solid calf kick that can take your leg out and put him in top position. We saw him use it against Neil Magny, and he also used it against Leon Edwards. And they're both southpaws here, so that's going to be there for him. So it wouldn't shock me to see him do that. So let's not sleep on RDA's submission game either. RDA's got solid takedown defence. I know he's coming off them Colby fights and the Usman fight where he got wrestled, but his stand-up defence was pretty solid in them fights. Obviously, like, Usman took over towards the end of the fight, last couple of rounds, but up until that point, it was solid, and his get-up game's good as well. He's not easy just to take down and hold him down. So, for me personally, I did not see Michael Chiesa winning the decision here. I think if he wins this fight, it's a back take and rear naked choke. Now, I'm not I'm not meaning that to sound as low percentage as it does sound. I think for someone like Michael Chiesa, that is a way higher percentage than it actually sounds, just because he is very opportunistic and he is good at taking the back. But at the same time, as I said, RDA's never been submitted. Michael Chiesa, he's got 0 TKO wins. He's submission, or he's won the odd decision like against Diego where he dominated him. But for me, I think he needs the rear naked choke here to win this fight. Otherwise, I think RDA is going to win. I just think he's pretty much better everywhere. I mean, you could even argue, I mean, in terms of grappling, I think he's the better MMA grappler. But yeah, Chiesa is more opportunistic with his submissions. So I'm really looking forward to this one because it's going to be really interesting. Because as I said, there are some people really confident in Chiesa here. So maybe I'm underappreciating Michael Chiesa. So we shall see. But yeah, the pick for me is RDA. Probably to win a decision, but I wouldn't be shocked if he ended up on top of Chiesa and got a submission himself. I'm not sold on Chiesa's kind of submission defence. So yeah, RDA for me. Right, the main event is Curtis Blaydes taking on Junior Dos Santos. Good fight, this one. It would really help give us an idea of where Curtis Blaydes is at and what Junior Dos Santos has left actually. So Curtis Blaydes, very strong wrestler. His takedown game is very, very impressive. I mean, he's not like a chain wrestler type, but it's just his double leg is very, very good. He averages 7 takedowns per 15 minutes. His takedown accuracy is up at 60% now. For someone that's had as many fights in the UFC that Curtis has had, that's very impressive, especially at heavyweight. He's got a very good gas tank for a heavyweight, especially for his style of fighting. Stand up is it's a work in progress. It's definitely improving, but his bread and butter is getting the fight to the floor, controlling you on the floor. Junior Dos Santos, he had the wars with Cain Velasquez. They definitely took something out of him. I'm pretty sure he's a USADA victim as well. That didn't help, but he's managed to put a little bit of a run together. So he had the rematch with Cain where he took a extreme beatdown. He's not done too badly since. I mean, he's gone 1-1 with Stipe, but he has started to get stopped. Alistair Overeem put him away in the second round. Stipe put him away in the first round in the rematch, and he's coming off that loss to Francis Ngannou in the first round. Obviously, no shame in being put away by that guy. That guy's power is just ridiculous. But he's put in some decent performances in between. Comfortably outboxed Ben Rothwell and Ivanov. Took out Taito Avasa in the second round, and a comfortable win over Derek Lewis as well. So he's definitely not finished. He's definitely still got some fight left in him, but there's a little bit of an unknown here, because the problem with Junior Dos Santos is we haven't seen his takedown defence tested really since the last Cain Velasquez fight. So he's not easy to take down, but what JDS does do is he does back up into the fence. So he's going to give Curtis opportunities here to make his entries and try and hit his takedowns. So the question mark is, can JDS stop these takedowns? And I mean, it's a 5-round fight here. I just think that Curtis is probably wear him down. Even if he's not having massive success early with the takedowns, I just think he can keep trying. He can set a very high pace. I mean, can JDS get back to his feet? I mean, it's not a game over as soon as Curtis Blaydes hits a takedown. I mean, Curtis has got 9 KOs from his 12 wins, but I mean, Justin Willis was able to keep getting back to his feet when they fought. Alistair Overeem was survived until kind of late into the 3rd round. Mark Hunt managed to survive on the mat with him as well. So it's not like he takes you down and it's game over. And we obviously had the Daniel Omalejchuk fight where he couldn't get Daniel down. real frustrating fight for that one, Blaydes. Just kept trying, just couldn't take him down. I mean, scary thing is, if you take that fight out of his stats, I mean, where's his takedown percentage at? It's probably up at like 80% if you remove that fight, because I think he stuffed every takedown attempt in that fight, Daniel. But you know, he has beaten good competition, Blaydes. Since that fight, he beat Mark Hunt, albeit he did get rocked. He beat Alistair Overeem and managed to finish him. And he's coming off wins over Willison, Shamil, Abdulkarimov, and he actually got the stoppage win over Shamil with ground and pound in that fight. But Shamil just didn't have anything off his back whatsoever. So on the feet, Junior Dos Santos is definitely the better boxer technically, and there's always a chance at heavyweight he could catch Blaydes coming in. Blaydes is hittable. We have seen him hurt. Seen him hurt a few times. Mark Hunt had him badly hurt. So you know, Junior Dos Santos always has a puncher's chance here, especially at heavyweight, especially when it's a 5-rounder. But I just think Blaydes is going to come out. He is improving. You know, Junior Dos Santos is probably on the decline now. I think Blaydes is just going to apply a lot of pressure. I think he's going to go for those takedowns, even if he can't get them. I think he's just going to make Junior Dos Santos work. And I just think as the fight goes on, he will start to have success getting Junior Dos Santos down and just start to wear on him. And I see Blaydes getting maybe a late finish here through ground and pound possibly. The only book that's released the over-under is Bet Online so far. They've got the over at 2.5 rounds, which it was probably always going to be set. I saw a lot of people hoping for 1.5, but this is probably one of those fights where for a heavyweight it is going to be set at 2.5. Bet Online have got the over at plus 130, which I don't think it's bad. I mean, if you look at JDS, he has been taken out under 2.5 rounds on 3 occasions, I think it is. But against strikers and punchers that Blaydes isn't, you know, Francis Ngannou, Stipe Miocic, Alistair Overeem, it's not the kind of power Blaydes really brings on the feet. And like I said, I think he's going to be looking to get his wrestling going as quickly as possible here. And I don't think Blaydes takes him down and just finishes him. You know, as I said, Blaydes, you know, he did get Shamil out of there in the second round, but generally speaking, it's taken him a while to get people out of there, if at all. You know, as I said, Mark Hunt survived. Alistair Overeem, if you'd bet the over there, it would have hit. Justin Willis lasted the 3 rounds. So it's not necessarily game over as soon as this hits the floor. I think this is going to be a little bit of a wearing out process. Just using that body weight to wear the older, more worn out man down. So I'm going to go with Blaydes, either a late stoppage or to win a decision here. I think the decision's sitting at like plus 450 last time I looked. It's come down slightly, plus 425. Look, it's heavyweight, it's going to be a massive sweat, but I think that's a little bit too high, to be completely honest. So I'm still thinking this one over. I'm not betting Blaydes money line. That's too high for me. Minus 250 basically. Heavyweight fight against a man like Dos Santos who can crack. But the over sitting at plus 130 is fairly appealing. I haven't touched it yet, but I'm thinking about it. And even some Blaydes decision plus 425 is interesting as well for me. I'd be surprised if this finishes early, especially Blaydes finishing early. I mean, Junior Dos Santos could catch him early, but I mean, the likelihood is the younger, fresher guy wears down the older veteran here for, as I've said, a late stoppage or even a decision win. So I will go with Curtis Blaydes here. So that wraps up the card, guys. We've got 2 weeks off until UFC 247, but after that show, I think we've got about 8 in a row, so we're kind of fully into the season then. As I've said, if you want to subscribe to the service, packages are at ProMMABetting.com. Go to Premium Bets. Yearly service, guys, it's only £195 for 12 months. Last year, £100 per unit bettors won 14,500. utilising our pre-betting and live betting service. Also, American listeners, there's a site called Bet Phoenix that apparently mirror Bet365, which is a great website for live betting in Europe and Canada, which a lot of the guys that are members with me are now using for live betting. So if you are interested in live betting, Bet Phoenix for American listeners, £195 for 12-month subscription service, as I said, available at the website prommbetting.com. Please like the video, please hit the subscription button, and I'll be back in a couple of weeks to break down the UFC 247 card. What I will say about that card is I'm quite deep into it at the moment. It is not a good betting card for me personally. I've seen quite a few people say it as well. Not liking it at all really from a betting perspective, but we get cards like that throughout the year. You know, you have to be big enough and responsible enough to sometimes say the best bet is no bet, and I'm sure we will have a couple of bets, but there's definitely going to be nothing big on that card. It's not a good betting card. And there is Bellator this weekend as well, actually. Bellator 238. It's got actually a really solid card. Sergio Pettis is making his UFC debut, and so is Cyborg in the main event. So actually quite looking forward to that card. It's possibly on par with this UFC card, which is pretty weak. But good luck with your bets, guys. Any questions, feel free to drop them in the comments section or drop us an email, info@prommabetting.com.